Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going to do a deep dive into embedded finance,
Oh, yeah.
a topic I know a lot of you have been wanting to learn more about.
Definitely a hot
We've
topic.
got a ton of great sources for this one.
Awesome.
Reports from Alloy, McKinsey, a bunch of white
I
papers,
love it.
even some real-world company examples to really bring this to life.
Yeah, can't wait.
So what are we going to try to figure out today?
Yeah.
Well, first off, what exactly is embedded finance?
Okay.
Why is it suddenly everywhere you look?
Hmm.
What opportunities and challenges come with it?
Great.
And most importantly, how could it affect your life?
A big question.
So maybe you can start by just giving us a quick definition.
Yeah. So at its heart, embedded finance is really the integration of financial services.
Well, yeah.
So things like payments, loans, insurance,
Gotcha.
directly into non-financial platforms.
Okay, so that's like when you buy travel insurance while booking a flight,
Exactly.
or you apply for a loan without ever leaving your Shopify store.
Yeah, it's all about making those financial services an almost invisible part of our daily lives.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
It's already happening all around us.
Yeah.
And one report I was looking at even predicts that a huge 60% of global businesses
Wow.
will be using embedded finance by 2025.
That's a lot.
So what does this mean for me or you, just the average person?
All right.
Will we even interact with traditional banks in a few years?
Yeah, that's a question a lot of people are asking. I mean, imagine a world where almost every business you interact with offers these integrated financial services.
Yeah.
It could revolutionize entire industries.
Yeah.
You could get a loan for a car while you're browsing online or buy something on an installment plan with just a single click.
Okay, I see where this is going. It could completely change how we shop and manage our money.
Totally.
So what's driving this sudden explosion of embedded finance?
Well, it's a combination of technology and changes in regulations. Things like open banking regulations like PSD2 in Europe
Right.
forced banks to share their data securely with other companies using APIs.
So it's like they had to create digital doorways for others to connect with their system.
Exactly.
This made it possible for fintech companies to build their innovative services right on top of what the banks already had.
Yeah,
So PSD2 really shook things up.
it really did.
But it sounds pretty complicated. Could you break it down a bit more?
Yeah, imagine PSD2 as a universal translator for banks and tech companies.
Okay.
It allows them to speak the same language and exchange information securely.
Okay.
Before PSD2, it was much harder for fintech companies to access the financial data they needed to build these integrated services.
So it's like PSD2 was the key that unlocked the door for embedded finance.
Absolutely. And at the same time, cloud computing came along and made everything way cheaper and faster to implement.
Yeah.
Suddenly, all the pieces were in place for this huge shift.
So that's where the fintech companies come in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Fintechs are often the ones developing these creative solutions, and they often use something called the FBO model.
What's that?
It stands for benefit of. What they do is handle all the money stuff while working behind the scenes with licensed banks.
So it's like a tag team with each side bringing their own strengths. That's pretty smart.
Yeah.
And what kind of real-world examples are we seeing of all this?
Well, look at the retail world. Apple Pay has partnered with a firm to offer interest-free installment plans during checkout. It's become incredibly popular, especially with BNPL.
BNPL.
Yeah, buy now, pay later services, already being used by a huge 43% of U.S. consumers.
Wow, that's massive. It's clear that people are embracing these new options.
Yeah.
What other examples are out there?
Well, Uber is a great example. They've created a whole ecosystem for their drivers within the app,
Oh, sweet.
offering things like instant payouts, loans for vehicles, and even insurance.
Yeah.
It's like a built-in safety net, and it's been incredibly effective.
Yeah.
They've seen an 18% decrease in drivers leaving the platform.
That's a pretty significant impact. It shows how powerful embedded finance can be when it's done right.
Yeah.
What about other industries?
Well, we're also seeing really interesting developments in healthcare. Startups like Payzen are making it easier for patients to pay their medical bills by letting them split the costs into manageable payments right at the hospital.
That's a huge relief for so many people.
Yeah.
And speaking of making things easier, let's not forget about Shopify, that e-commerce giant.
Oh, absolutely. Shopify has built this amazing integrated financial suite
Yeah.
with everything from bank accounts and loans to a complete payment system.
Oh, wow.
And get this, it generates a whopping 32% of their total revenue.
32%? That's incredible. They've created a whole financial ecosystem within their platform.
Total game changer. And this is where things start to get interesting.
Oh, really?
These platforms are taking a bigger piece of the pie,
Okay.
while traditional banks are seeing their share shrink.
Interesting.
It's causing a power shift in the financial world.
So some are winning big while others are scrambling to adapt.
Absolutely.
But with all this easy access to credit, do you think there's a risk of people taking on too much debt?
That's a valid concern, especially with BNPL options becoming so prevalent. There's definitely a risk of over-leveraging. It's something to watch carefully as embedded finance grows.
Sounds like there are some big challenges alongside all these amazing opportunities.
Definitely. And one of the biggest is compliance.
Okay.
All these players in the embedded finance space have to navigate a complex web of regulations. Things like KYC, know your customer, AML, anti-money laundering,
Got it.
and data localization rules are just the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, wow. So it's not just about building cool new services. It's about doing it responsibly and making sure everything is by the book.
Yeah, you got it. And it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Alloy's research found that fintech product managers spend a whopping 40% of their time on compliance.
40%. That's almost half their day.
I know, it's a lot.
So this compliance stuff is serious business. What happens if companies don't get it right?
The consequences can be really severe. Alloy's report also showed that some banks have lost millions of dollars because of compliance violations.
Oh,
It's a high-stakes game. Finding the balance between innovation and risk management is crucial.
yeah. And it sounds like some companies are struggling to find that balance.
Mm.
One of Alloy's reports said that a surprising 29% of banks considered shutting down their entire embedded finance programs because of the compliance burdens.
Yeah, it just shows you how challenging this can be.
Yeah.
There's a real need for banks and fintechs to find better ways to work together, share their expertise, develop robust risk management tools.
Okay.
It's essential to ensure compliance without stifling innovation.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It seems like finding that sweet spot is key to success in the embedded finance world. But what does all this mean for the future?
Well, that's what we're going to delve into next.
Right.
We'll explore the predictions for what's coming next in embedded finance and how these trends could shape the financial landscape.
Can't wait.
Stay tuned.
All right.
It's interesting, even with all these challenges, it seems like a lot of banks are recognizing the importance of embedded finance for their future.
Yeah, makes sense.
They're putting a lot of resources into new compliance technology,
Okay.
increasing their training programs to keep up with the ever-changing regulation.
That's good to hear. But I'm curious, are banks really willing to give up some control and share revenue with these fintech partners? That seems like a tough pill to swallow for these traditional institutions.
Yeah, it's definitely a shift in mindset. Creates an interesting dynamic. Alloy's survey actually revealed some insightful trends in this area. They found that banks are increasingly moving away from using BAC platforms.
What's that stand for?
It stands for Banking as a Service.
Okay.
Instead, they're choosing to partner directly with fintech companies.
So instead of going through a middleman, they're taking a more direct approach. Why is that happening?
It seems like both banks and fintechs want more control and flexibility in their partnerships. Banks want a greater say in managing risk, while fintechs want to maintain their ability to innovate.
Right.
Direct partnerships allow for a more customized approach,
Yeah,
rather than relying on a one-size-fits-all BaaS platform.
that makes sense. It's about finding a balance that works for everyone. But let's be honest, money talks. Who's really winning in this embedded finance game?
Right.
Is it a win-win for everyone involved?
Well, that's where things get really fascinating. Embedded finance has the potential to unlock huge value, but how that value is distributed is causing some major disruption. Traditional banks are seeing their piece of the pie shrink, while platforms like Shopify are reaping the benefits.
Yet you mentioned earlier that Shopify's financial suite brings in a massive 32% of their total revenue.
I know, it's crazy.
That's not just a side hustle.
Yeah.
It's a core part of their business.
Exactly, and they're generating revenue from multiple sources within their embedded finance offerings, like transaction fees, interest on loans, subscriptions for API access. They've figured out how to capture value at different points in the chain.
It sounds like they've cracked the code. So with all this momentum, where do you see embedded finance going in the future?
Yeah.
Is this wave going to keep building, or will it fizzle out?
Hold on tight, because it's only going to get bigger. Alloy's leaders predict that compliance requirements will become even stricter.
Oh, really?
Those who take a check-the-box approach to compliance are in for a rude awakening. We're talking more frequent audits, tougher regulations, a lot more scrutiny.
So only the serious players will survive. What does this mean for smaller fintech companies trying to enter the market?
It's definitely going to separate the contenders from the pretenders. Expect to see some consolidation in the industry. Those who aren't fully committed will likely drop out, while the major players will invest even more in compliance and technology.
So adapting, innovating, and staying ahead of the curve are crucial in this fast-paced environment.
Yeah.
But how will all of this impact the average person?
Right.
How will embedded finance change our daily lives?
That's the big question, isn't it? As embedded finance becomes more widespread, it's going to touch nearly every aspect of our lives.
Oh, wow.
From how we shop and handle our money to the way we access healthcare,
Yeah.
and even interact with our smart homes.
Really?
Financial services will seamlessly integrate into the background.
It's almost like the lines between financial and non-financial activities are blurring.
Yeah.
That's both exciting and a little bit unsettling. What are some of the things we need to be mindful of as embedded finance evolves?
Absolutely. One key area is global standardization.
Right.
We need to establish consistent guidelines for API security and data privacy to ensure that this revolution happens responsibly.
That makes sense. It's all about building trust in these new systems. What about issues like financial inclusion? Can embedded finance help or hinder efforts to reach underserved communities?
That's a crucial point. Embedded finance has the potential to expand access to financial services for people who have been traditionally excluded. But it requires careful consideration. It's not a guaranteed outcome. We need to ensure that these solutions are designed with inclusivity in mind.
So it's about making sure that everyone benefits from this technological advancement, not just a select few. And speaking of technology, what role do you see artificial intelligence playing in the world of embedded finance?
AI is going to be huge.
Oh, wow.
As AI-powered systems become more sophisticated, we need to be very careful about things like algorithmic bias.
Okay.
This is especially important in areas like loan approvals and risk assessments. We need to make sure that AI is used ethically and fairly so it doesn't perpetuate existing inequalities.
It sounds like there's a delicate balance to strike between harnessing the power of AI and making sure it's used responsibly. What other considerations do you think are important as we navigate this new financial frontier?
Well, transparency and consumer education are key. Providers need to be very clear about fees, terms, and data sharing practices.
Yeah.
And consumers need to be empowered to make informed decisions about the embedded finance solutions they choose.
That makes perfect sense. It's all about building trust and fostering a sense of confidence in this evolving landscape. But what about the impact on businesses?
Right.
You've talked a lot about consumers, but how can companies leverage embedded finance to their advantage?
Well, that's what we're going to explore next.
Okay.
We'll delve into the strategic implications of embedded finance for businesses and look at some examples of companies that are doing it right.
So we've talked a lot about the consumer side of embedded finance, but what about the impact on businesses? How are companies using this to their advantage?
Yeah, it's not just about offering these cool new features.
Right.
Embedded finance really allows businesses to completely rethink their models. It's about finding creative ways to leverage financial services to unlock new revenue streams, build stronger customer relationships, and gain an edge over the competition.
So it's not just a trend, it's a fundamental shift in how businesses operate.
Exactly. Businesses need to ask themselves, how can we use embedded finance to make our products and services even more valuable and indispensable to our customers? It's about thinking beyond traditional boundaries.
Do you have any examples of companies that are doing this well?
Yeah, take Post, for example.
Okay.
They provide point-of-sale systems for restaurants,
Right.
and they've integrated financial services like lending and payroll directly into their platform.
Oh, wow.
This makes them a one-stop shop for restaurant owners, simplifying their operations and creating a really powerful network effect.
That's a great example. They've identified a pain point for their customers and solved it seamlessly using embedded finance. It's about providing real value, not just pushing products.
Exactly. And as this trend continues, we can expect to see more and more businesses across different industries embracing embedded finance. Imagine healthcare providers offering personalized payment plans, manufacturers embedding financing options for equipment purchases, or real estate platforms integrating mortgage services.
Yeah, wow.
The possibilities are truly endless.
It sounds like embedded finance is becoming the invisible thread that connects entire ecosystems.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. It's not just about individual transactions. It's about creating these interconnected experiences that add value at every touch point.
This has been an incredible deep dive. We've explored so much. what embedded finance is its impact on consumers and businesses, even how it's reshaping the financial landscape. I feel like I've learned a lot.
Yeah, it's been a fascinating conversation, and I think you've hit the nail on the head. Embedded finance is truly transforming how we interact with money and do business in the digital age.
Well, before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about. With embedded finance becoming so prevalent, how might it change your life in the coming years? Think about the platforms you use every day, the products you buy, the services you rely on. How could embedded finance improve those experiences? Are there any potential downsides you're concerned about?
Yeah, those are great questions to consider. It's an exciting time, but it's also important to be aware of the potential challenges and implications as this technology evolves.
Well, this deep dive has definitely given me a lot to think about. It's clear that embedded finance is here to stay, and it's going to be fascinating to see how it continues to shape the world around us. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into embedded finance. We hope you found it insightful and thought-provoking. And if you'd like to learn more about specific companies or use cases, we encourage you to keep exploring.